Hi, everybody. I'm Bud Shaw. I'm a solution architect with GSI. Just a bit about me. I've been working with JD Edwards for over 23 years now, working as a solution consultant in the software industry for over 30. And I am a functional guy. Hence, you'll see the stuff I do in JDE for these sessions using the tools, Orchestrator, Workflow Studio, those things like that. You know, I can do them because they're not developer activities. So that it's, you know, kind of you know, where why I do what I do and what I watch. So I'm going to stop my little video here, and I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen, and I'll pick up the slideshow for Mike. So that's me. I'm bud.shaw@getgsi.com. Just go ahead and feel free to send any email questions or whatever you may have during or after this presentation. So what we're really doing here today is kind of highlighting the new some of the new enhanced features in JD Edwards tools, and to use them effectively, they have to have a project, some use of it. So the one that some webinar is based on is oftentimes in a job cost or project-based organization, a job or project manager needs to approve accounts payable vouchers before they can get processed for payment. So, and I've seen that time and time again in those environments. I'm a project manager. When somebody puts a voucher in, they need to approve the voucher before it gets done. What JD Edwards provides out of the box a voucher batch approval process, but not at the individual voucher level. So this is a workflow taking advantage of the new features to send a newly entered invoice voucher to the business unit owner for that job, cost, or project in the business unit, and have them approve that voucher and flow it on through into JD Edwards. So that's this. This is just one of many scenarios that we could have taken advantage of. So when you have that scenario in your world, you know, this voucher needs to approve somehow before it goes in. What are your solutions? And the first one is create a custom solution. Development, programming, usually expensive and time consuming, and then it's a customization to your JD Edwards environment that if you need to do an upgrade, you have to retrofit it and move it on. Okay, so but it's doable and has been done in the past. You can rely on a manual intervention, you know, the old paper base. You know, somebody gets a voucher in, they write it down, pass the paper on, somebody approves it on paper and then puts it into the system. Not at all efficient, not at all good, and it certainly does not lend itself well to tracking, you know, what vouchers need to get approved and who approved them and when and all that other kind of stuff. There are third-party applications for AP voucher workflows and stuff like that, and you can buy one of those, implement them again. That's costly, requires an interface usually, but you know, it's a bolt-on and it's an add-on to JDE, costly and whatnot. So the other solution, which is what we're going to go into today, is using the Orchestrator Studio with logic extensions and Workflow Studio. Those are new features. They came out in the release 926 tools, release 22, and have been enhanced on through 926 to where we're at 927.3 right now. So this scenario is based on, I think it was a 926.1 or 2 tools release. So you don't have to be on the latest and greatest to take advantage of this, but there are some features you'll see in here that that come along with the later release of the Orchestrator Studio, and when it included Workflow Studio and logic extensions in it. So the flow of this guy is a logical extension. And this is, I'm going to go in and show you this live in just a minute, and we'll walk through the process of it. But basically, it sets what values you want as your pay status code. The pay status is on hold. That triggers the workflow that says I've got a hold voucher in JDE that I want to route. So this is the logical extension. It starts a record read of the 411, FO411, that's the voucher table, does a fetch next and loops through that table. And here is where it gets into each one, where it says if, and it will get into to show you how this if else works. That says if the record I just read from the 411 has a status code of hold on it, then we're going to go through this process. We're actually going to just count it so that we know how many hold records we've got in there. Then we read the business unit to get who the business unit owner is. That's the F0006 table. And then here's the extra new one in here is to be able to start a workflow from the logic extension, right? And that's in the workflow studio within the Orchestrator studio as well. So these are this is the flow that we're going to walk through in our solution. So that's, the walkthrough of how it does. AP vouchers are entered in an on-hold status. A logic extension will detect these vouchers and use the information in that to get the business unit owner and then get the address book to route that workflow for approval. That's really the process of it. And I'm going to show you the workflow. We're going to modify the workflow so you can see a little bit of how that works, and show the logic extension as well. If you've never done a logic extension and want to learn more about it, our next workshop is for Orchestrator. So you can come join that one and do your first orchestration. Then I think the month after that, we're going to do another upgrade workshop where we get you a hands-on and you build your own logic extension. So stick with GSI. And we'll help teach you this stuff. And of course, then, always, if you need some help or want us to do the work for you, reach out to us and we can help with that. So that was how it was built. Let's see it in action and get a sense of the whole process in it. Stop for a minute for any questions. I don't see any out there, but okay, so we'll.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any yet.
All right, so I'm going to start here with the logic extension that we're using. So on my screen here, these are the two new 926 tools that were features that were rolled into Orchestrator Studio. There were a couple other ones here, but these are the two we're focused in on. One is logic extensions. Logic extensions are Orchestrator's way of allowing you to build orchestrations and add logic to them. If the record is on hold, then do this. It can do, as you saw, the if, then, while loops. It can do table IOs, updates, and things like that as well. And then the other one was the workflow. The old workflow modeler, which was the fat client version of building workflows. And I don't know if you ever tried to build a workflow in the fat client. It was clumsy, difficult. And then, of course, to trigger the workflow, you had to go into the program and put a piece of code in there that says, okay, at this point, trigger this workflow. Well, logic extension will do that for you. So let's take a look at the logic extension that's going to do our whole workflow trigger. So here it is right here. It's called, in my world, it's called AGMS. That's my initials, AP approval. When you're building these for real, there's a standard nomenclature, like for workflows, we'll put a WF in there and whatnot. So as I talked about it, this is your diagram with all the different components in here, right? And so the first thing we're doing is an assignment block, and this is the assignment block. This is setting up what variables, what things you're going to look at. We only want to look at document types that are payment vouchers, right? And the pay status code is an H, and the company key is 1, right? Those are some variables and defaults that you can set in this assignment block. The first one is just set to read the voucher table, just a select, right? Start reading the table. And what we're going to do is use a particular key with the company key and a document type equal to my company key of 1 that we set in the assignment block, and the document type of a PV. So that's the first step. It does a select, and then we're going to do a looping, right? Fetch next, fetch each next record, right? And here is your while loop. So while it's successfully reading through that FO411 table, right? And your company key is matching your key, your company, or 0001 in my demo world, and document type of PV. And we've coded them into the assignment block. That doesn't mean you can't map those as variables in from, a form extension. I mean, a form extension in JDE, or some other, a prompting a user or something like that. But this is just the way this one was done to show the whole process. So this is the while loop that says while we're successfully at that, we're going to fetch the next record, and we're bringing in the fields that we want to. Here's the amount, the vendor number, the pay status code, the voucher number, because we're going to need those to pass into the workflow when we're going to pass it into the workflow. So if we're pay status code is a hold and the document type is PV, that's what our variable is set. If that's a true scenario, then we're going to go down the true branch, else we're going to just loop on through and continue looping through the fetch next. So we're just doing a little simple assignment block in here, and the true statement of that if else. This is the count. We're going to just get the count, and we're going to get the vendor number into a vendor number. And then in here, we're going to get the business unit from the that we brought in when we mapped over. Here's where we mapped them in. Here's our cost center into the, we mapped the cost center and a variable cost center. And in here, we're going to get the business unit where you map the cost center in. That's the mapping in. And then we're going to get the responsible person from the F000 or F0006 table into our responsible person. That's the person who's going to get to send the workflow to approve it. And then we're going to start the workflow. And then we add the workflow in by dragging and dropping this workflow diagram into our diagram, and then mapping the variables in. For every workflow in JDE, there are 2 data structures. There's a key and additional data structure. So in here, our key data structure is just the voucher number. And then the additional data structure is the person responsible, the amount, and the vendor number. You could have more variables in there, vendor name, whatever you may need to pass in the workflow to let your user know that they're supposed to do this approval. This is all done using the web. These key data structures, the message templates for the workflow are all done using the web. No more need to go to what we finally call a FAT client, the Windows client, to go and do that. So that's this one. So our workflow that we're calling here is AGMS AP workflow, right, in here. So we're going to go ahead and close out of this guy. So the workflow that we just looked at that was being called for it, here is our workflow. This is the complete workflow that it's calling. It has a start. It sends a standard JDE approval in the 9271 tools release. You can create a workflow from scratch and make your own. This is just using a standard JDE approval workflow, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then once it's approved, here's calls an orchestration. That's the other new feature in here, and that's the orchestration that's going to actually update the voucher record and take it off of hold. Before you had these capabilities in the Workflow Studio, you would have to go into workflows, and then that update of the data would require a building of a business function to do it, aka programming. These are all low code, no code solutions. So what I have is just to kind of show you how these things work. is I've got my example of here, just a start, an approval, and an end, right? If we look at the start, here's the approval. We can look at the message in here. You can see voucher requires your approval. Here is the message, which is a data dictionary item in JDE that you can define using the web client. And then these are the variables that are going to get passed into the message. Number 1 is the document number. Variable 2 is the supplier address. And then the 3 is an amount gross. So that could be you could add, maybe the supplier name or something like that. We can say, please approve by EOD, end of day. So you're working within these message editors within the workflow. So now once this approval gets done, and I needed to show you this here briefly. So this is the standard shortcut P98806, which is a standard JDE approval message, right? And we're just passing that into that message. So once somebody approves it, you want to update the data in JDE. So we're going to just drag and drop and call an orchestration from in here, right? So there's an orchestration drag and drop, and we're going to edit that add-in to call the orchestration. So we're going to call an orchestration. We can look up the orchestration. Notice it could be a notification. Maybe when it's done, you want to send a notification and let people subscribe to the notification that they know that this one was this voucher has been approved. But here is the release voucher from hold. Orchestration. I could have showed you that in the Orchestrator Studio. Just be aware that this one was one that I did using a process recorder. So very simple. Record the process of calling up a voucher and changing the hold code from an H to an A for approved. So for it to call this orchestration, it needs to pass in a document number. That's the voucher number. So we drag and drop and map that in. That's been brought into the workflow by the call of the workflow from the logic extension. And then we can have a select row, and I just make it a 1 just to map it in. It really is kind of a not necessary kind of step, right? To map that in here. So we put a literal of 1 in here. So it's going to call that voucher and get the first instance of record number 1 as it does a find in the voucher selected or whatnot. It's just the way this one was working. So we've actually gone ahead and done it. Now, when you're working with these guys, you will save the changes. Then you manage it, which allows you to validate it and then release the reservation, and then you activate it for it to become used, right? So our workflow that is active is the one, if I just show the active workflow here, there is my active workflow for workflow approval. This is the one we did earlier. So that's the one that's going to get called by our logical extension. No questions yet, Mike? Doing okay? All right. So that's kind of the layout. As I talked about here, I will show you that release orchestration, just so you can see that one. It's pretty simple. This is the hold release orchestration that does it. So basically does a start, maps the values in, and then this is the release of the hold. You can see where it reads through, sets the value in, selects the row, enters the voucher information, and then sets the pay status to A, for approval, that it's approved. I can highlight this guy, right? So there's our cell value for pay status, and then updates it and then exits it. And the reason it's a 3-stepper because that's the way the process recorder did it. Okay. So now let's go into our JDE and see a record and that it's going to use. So I'm going to go into JD Edwards. All right, so here's my standard voucher entry screen, and I've got a record out here. Notice the pay status of hold, right, has been entered. And we can see the business unit that this one belongs to, right? Business unit 310 in my demo world, that would be the project or job or the business unit. So that is the business unit is going to call out to get the owner, the business unit owner. I can show you that field as well. I thought I had it in my favorites, but let me just get there. So our business unit 310, and this is just happens to be the field that I picked, which was the additional address book. So Jason Fuentes, address book number 7550, is the person who's going to get the message to approve the workflow, right? That's coming to them. This is all standard workflow stuff. So be aware that in JDE standard workflow delegations, when Jason Fuentes wants to go on vacation, right, he can add delegate his workflows to somebody else, right? I don't want to do that because we're going to go through it. But here's some other examples of workflow users for engineering or procurement or customer service and who they get assigned to, and the effective date and expiration date. So when you set up in this case, like I said, this is a job cost user, whatever that address book may be, or role, and then assign a delegate name to get the actual workflows and approve and walk it through. So you're taking advantage of it. And then when it's all said and done, I'll show you the process task monitor so you can see when the workflow got triggered, how long it's been there, when did it get done, was there any problems with it, and you can go into the workflow and do things like escalating, right, for that. So when I run this through, I should see a document number 3815 for $1,222 getting routed to the business unit 310, Jason Fuentes being the individual to get that workflow. Now, I'm doing this just from a demo perspective to show you launching it through the logic extension, but it certainly could be, the logic extension certainly could be done when you click the OK button on entering a voucher, right? Use a form extension and add and launch the orchestration, and now you can launch a logic extension right from an activity or an action within the JDE screen, right? The application screen. So it could be when somebody says, okay, launch the orchestration says, is this record on hold? Go ahead and get the business unit owner and send the workflow. Or it could just be on the change of the pay status code. So there's other flex options within it. But just to kind of show this from a demo perspective, I'm going to go ahead and run this guy in a test. Or test run this one. So you can see here, this is the outputs. There is my Jason Fuentes. There's the voucher number and the other information that came out of it. So when that thing ran, right, it sent the workflow to Jason Fuentes. So I'm going to log out and log in as another user. Who is Jason Fuentes. So this is Jason. Now, a couple of ways. I don't have email server hooked up to our labs. If I did, Jason could certainly get an email, right, of this workflow. They can go to their work center, as it's more traditional, or in JDE, the notifications, and you can go to your message center. This is where you would see, notifications that they subscribe to, or in this case, we're going to go to the show the work center message that the workflow triggered and sent to them. Right? So here is my work center. I think I had it come into priority mail, right? And here is the voucher requires my approval, Jason Fuentes. And we can see it was just done today, and timing in the server or whatnot. There is things you could do, like you could attach now to your messages media objects. So if somebody had, scanned and attached the voucher, the actual voucher to the voucher, you could have attached that as a media object attachment to the message. But we're just going to go in here into workflow approval. And as I said, this is just a simple approval. I've actually done some other workflow examples where they pass variables. This is the information that you want to go to it. But actually, I should go in here and say, hang on a second. Let me show you the details of that, guy. So we go into this guy. So here is the voucher number 3815 for supplier 4 in the amount of $1,222 requires approval. I wanted to make sure you saw that. That was the message that we defined in there within it. And then we go into workflow approval. And then we say accept that or reject it. Of course, we rejected, the workflow could come back and send it. So now notice I don't have any more priority messages in my work center in here. And if I go back to standard voucher entry, if I do my little demo to show you records on hold, I don't have any. So the what was that document 3815? I think that was it. Oh, I didn't pay attention to what that document number was. Let me oh well, I was going to show you the voucher that got released from hold, but I can find it another way. So the process task monitor, because it is a standard workflow, we can take a look at that one. Here is my AGMS AP workflow. So there is the voucher 3815. You can see it was started today. The approval, Joseph Wendy's did it, opened, completed it, and then passed on to the orchestration to complete it. So I thought I had that right. That should have been 3815 as the standard voucher. There it is. So you can see, whereas before we had a hold in the pay status code, the active pay status has been picked up and launched by the orchestration that we added into the workflow. Once it went through the approval, it went and released it from hold. So I think that was the only other things that I think that I would want to show you, you may be interested in, is some of the messages, which is standard JDE. The keys, you can, those additional data, the workflow data structures can be done in the P98220W, the web OMW, and they can be created and launched within here. So let me see here what I wanted to do. I got as a different user that created it. This guy didn't use it. I'll show you that one, but let me, while I do that, it looks like you have a couple questions, Mike, while I log in as the other user.
Yeah. Let me, I'm trying to switch over. My Zoom is pokey. Okay.
Well, I can take a look at it.
Oh, there we go. Can it have a link to the invoice to review the invoice? And then Tom Wisniewski said, remove your query demo.
Yeah.
But that
Tom was trying to help me out.
Yeah, I know. Everyone needs to know.
So Julie, the answer is absolutely yes. I done another workflow. If you wanted to see it, it was recorded. It's I call it my new item workflow. So when somebody adds a new item master in JDE, the workflow that was defined in the processing options for the P4101, they just never existed. So we have a workflow that sends a link to the new item for somebody to maintain that item and then approve their changes to the item. So it could also, like I said, you could have a link to the invoice. And once you have that link to the invoice, you could also have the attachment, if you wanted to allow them to see that as well. So yes, there is.
Is there something they can search for? And I'm getting ready to put a copy of the link or a link to our YouTube channel. Is there a video they can search for in the search bar that might give them some more detail of other presentations you've done?
Yeah,
Or
the best way to do it, and this one will be out here soon, is go to get GSI, right? That's our website. Go underneath resources, and here's my webcast, mine and other ones, right?
Yeah.
So once this is done, you'll be able to click on this and see it. So here is one that I just talked about, the simple workflow creation workflow, and you can click on it. It's an on-demand now since it is passed. All you do is give your name and number and submit, and you can watch it. I do at least one a month of these webcasts, and I kind of stick with the same behavior of what it's all about, what's the value, how did it work, and how you could take advantage of it.
Okay, great.
Julie also asked, could this process be set on a scheduler? The answer is yes. In your Orchestrator Studio, to do that, you would just take your Logic extension, you would manage it and say create an orchestration out of it. I didn't call it up, but once you create an orchestration of it, then you can go into your scheduler and add a schedule and add it into a schedule and have it run as how often as you want, right? The beauty of the whole thing too is you brought that up. So here's the scheduler where you could add those into the scheduler. You can also watch your orchestrations in the monitor. So if things aren't working well or whatnot, you start getting some data analyses out of here. So here's my new item. Here's my change, approve vouchers. Any orchestration in here is captured in Track and Orchestrator Studio. So here's the value of it, what if you had any errors, and what's going on with it. So these are orchestrations in there, so you can watch what's going on here. So yeah, this is what but
right.
Absolutely the three options to run it, right? Go in and manually do it, which you would never do. Add it to a form extension in your voucher entry application, or put it on a scheduler and run it that way. Thank you for those questions. Any other?
In the chat, I put a couple links, so they want to get to it. The GSI web, the webcast on our.
All right. Well, I'll stop sharing. It'll go back to you, Mike, for wrap up.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, let me switch over here. Zoom is pokey, but just give me a moment. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's do share. Okay. Try that.
Now I see you.
Okay. So, we went all the way to the beginning. Sorry, I thought I had it logged up. All right. Just a reminder, and perfect timing. We do have educational resources that are newly designed and laid out website. We kind of took out some older stuff, and so I mean, there's things that go back 5 years or so, but most of it's relatively new and updated. But obviously, signing up for newsletters, webcasts, past webcasts. We have a YouTube channel too. One way to, if you're really searching for something specific, like a specific word, the YouTube channel sometimes is a little better to find that exact video. But everything that's on our webcast page is also on our YouTube channel. So upcoming events, we kind of shared. That's the workshop on the 15th. Obviously, we're on social media. We'd love for you to connect. We're kind of heaviest on LinkedIn and YouTube, obviously. And then I just placed in the chat a link to win a $25 Amazon gift card, just basically saying, we all know that Bud was great, but we just want to know how great he was in the survey. So that's just any kind of feedback we'd love to have. If you're rating me, please go easy on me. I'm not as smooth. Okay, we've done the Q&A. I will go over and check if there's any other. Doesn't look like there's any more new questions. I always like to ask the question, if there's one takeaway from today, what do you hope people got, or what do you hope they learn, or what do you hope they take from this? Is there, you know, something maybe you'd like to explain more, or just in general you find that a lot of people doing this tend to come across XYZ variable or whatever? But go ahead. Just, I don't know if you have any follow up with that. If there's one thing you'd want them to take away.
I think a closing comment was, these are all user defined objects in JDE. So you're building this today and it's there forever. If you upgrade, you do not have to retrofit this stuff. It's low code, no code, and it'll go along with your JDE, but it's not, you know, like a programming change in JDE that you have to retrofit when you go forward. And taking advantage of the native JDE workflow features, like, you know, the monitor or the delegation and things like that. So it's a good solution for a problem that's been out there for a while, and you know, it doesn't take a lot of technical expertise to do. So I think the next slide has my email in there, Mike, if you want to put that.
Yep, it does.
Yeah, so there's my email, there's my phone number. Something comes up afterwards, you want to, you know, brainstorm about something or just talk about things, you know, feel free to reach out. So I'm always happy to talk to people. So
yep, you are. Wonderful. Thanks, Bud, for your time. Thank you, everybody, for the great attendance, especially coming up on the holiday. And with so many people traveling and so many people out shooting off fiery stuff, be careful out there. We'd love to see you come back for future, obviously, but travel is really busy too. And we hope you have a great holiday weekend, but definitely holiday next week. Thanks for your time. And you will all be notified when this video is up for on demand. So wonderful. Thanks for your time. Any final words, Bud?
no, just think everybody have a safe and happy holiday.
All right. Thanks. You take care, everybody.
All right, bye.